We're back here again with another chapter of Four Nights of the Apocalypse, and this one I just really liked. This is more of a transitionary chapter, so not too much happens, so this will probably go by a bit short, but it's just an interaction between Pellagard, the main group, and the initial confrontation of their pursuers eventually, and something interesting that's going to happen with Pellagard towards the end of the chapter. So there's not too much for me to really dive super deep into, at least at the moment. But for now, let's just get ready to head into this really good chapter. But before all that, don't forget to like and subscribe, hit the notification bell for updates on future videos. Really helps, and it's just you guys enjoy the content I make on the channel and you want to see more. I like Four Nights of the Apocalypse as always, and I'm really enjoying this arc so far, and I cannot wait to see what happens next. So with all that out of the way, let's just start the chapter. Chapter 136 of Four Nights of the Apocalypse, titled The Advancing Dragnet, and I just like this most wholesome image of just Pellegarde standing over Percival, about to pat his head. These two characters have had so much in this series, and I really do believe that Pellegarde sees Percival as a kid that he could have had. And this is just really wholesome, especially after the big bombshell that we got at the end of the chapter. So we start off directly afterwards, where An tells Pellagard that Percival is actually alive, and Pellagard, like myself, was shocked over this. Now, I personally think this is too soon to be getting this reveal, but it is what it is. Pellagard feeling incredibly relieved that Percival is okay, as he was in fact worried. He thinks it's great news. An says she can't really say beyond that, as he hasn't woken up this whole time. Pellagard then asks where he is, but An says, I can't tell you. It's not that I don't trust you or anything, but Pellagard stops and says, yeah, you're right. I'm your enemy after all. As then the older brother barges in with Sylvain, saying that there's a bunch of noise at the front gate, and that it's likely their pursuers. And Donnie is shocked by this, and An asks where his sister is. But the guy says not to worry about it for now, as Pellagard obviously knows that this is a bit of trouble for him right now. And we then get a smash cut to the front gate with a new Chaos Knight with his very weird looking helmet, as he says, oh yes, I saw it all. Me with these very eyes here. Here's the thing, I do kind of like how with the four perils, they have really cool looking armors with different colors, save for Iron's. I'm still not a fan of his helmet, but the rest of his armor is cool. And the rest of the Chaos Knights have a mix of either cool and distinct or creepy and misleading, or just wacky and out there, kind of fitting the whole chaos aspect of their character designs. But with the idea of him seeing things with his eyes, and his staff having a finger that can point towards his eyes, it's very likely that his magical power is some sort of foresight or can see from very long distances. Though it's also another thing that he could see through what he deems his empty servants. So these are probably like some sort of chaos dolls that he can control and see through, thus allowing him to see from a multitude of different angles and directions, as he saw some very suspicious characters entering her house. As she's about to enter, Pellagard comes in and says, what's all the racket? What you saw were just my old friends visiting. Chaos Knight is happy to see Pellagard, one of Arthur's elite knights, and says these are suspects that match the descriptions that Sir Beltrap, I can't pronounce his name for the life of me sometimes, sent across Camelot. And Pellagard's like, go right ahead, search the castle, do whatever you want, as he shouts to his servants, stating not to let the suspects escape. As we see in the one single page, that they managed to escape to the bottom of Pellagard's castle area, back into the forest. As the group is beginning to go through the forest to try and get a way out, they end up coming to the conclusion that Pellagard indeed was not lying, obviously because he was afraid of her powers, but also Pellagard had no real reason to lie to them in all honesty. He likes them, and he doesn't really like keeping secrets. And as An says, Percival is a good judge of character, and yeah, he's a shonen protagonist. That tends to be the case like 99% of the time, but with someone like Percival, he nails it basically every time. But in that instance, Sylvain ruins their whole escape plan as a bug crawls up his leg and he shouts loud enough for them to hear at the top of a mountain. As the servants end up seeing them and spying them as they all begin to descend down into the forest to chase after them. Pellagard's wife then ends up saying, wait, your guests were on the run. Pellagard says, don't worry about it, just take Dick and stay with him for me. As the Chaos Knight ends up asking Pellagard for his help in capturing them, as obviously Pellagard does see this as trouble, but he obviously has no real choice. Our group begin to run through the forest to try and escape the pursuers, but they're catching up, and there is a good number of them. And Donnie then uses his telekinesis, grabs one, squishes it into a ball, and then just knocks him into every single one of them. And while the tag-along essentially is saying how good Donnie looks, Donnie just says that the enemies are just too vast in number, and he can't really keep up with them. as more and more of them begin to lunge at them. It's at that moment that they are engulfed by a giant fireball, the Immortal Fire, which obviously we all recognize is one of Pellegarde's signature moves. Everyone immediately recognizes that attack. The Chaos Knight present ends up asking why Pellagard is destroying his servants, but Pellagard just yells at him, saying him to move aside and get your minions out of the way. I gotta work. And as Pellagard goes down on his flying shield, which I actually continue to love, it's like he's on a mini flying saucer, he ends up telling the group to forgive him, but he has his duties to the king, so he has to pursue them. Donnie's like, wait, are you kidding me? But Gother just tells him, look, given his position, he doesn't really have much of a choice, especially if he wants to defend his family. And Pellagard obviously does not look like he wants to pursue them after this heartfelt conversation they just had. As he does view them as friends, but also enemies, it's a complicated situation like last chapter's conversation ended up giving. But Gother confidently says, but we won't take this pursuit lying down. As the Chaos Knight that is cheering on Pellagard, saying, oh, they're gonna get it now, as he says, you pitiful rebel scum, he is then pinned down to the ground, squished down by one of Pellagard's giant wolves, and it's revealed from the top that one of Gother's severed arms was actually on top of it. A part of me was afraid that this would not get touched on, I never mentioned it, but I am glad that Gother can actually manipulate his severed limbs at will wherever they are. I don't know if there's like a distance thing, but that's actually really cool. That his left arm is basically on top of the giant wolf, and he's been using his invasion to just control it. I wouldn't be surprised if this is what he was doing as they were having their conversation, as like a contingency plan to get them out of this, and it seems to be working. And Pellagard notices that his pet is being controlled. Gother's severed arm pushes itself off of the wolf, and then uses an attack hitting Pellagard square in the head, with a good invasion. As the knight, obviously still alive unfortunately, watches as Pellagard is hit in the head with this mental attack. Gother says it's called Mindstorm, and it confuses the target, making them do themselves in, as Pellagard falls to the ground off his shield, and seems to be struggling, perhaps with a bit of a smirk. Ending the chapter. The main takeaway from this chapter is Pellagard has to pursue the main group, and Gother managed to find a way to maybe get around and get them to escape. Whether he actually managed to get Pellagard to help them escape through this, or gave Pellagard an out to essentially manipulate him to help them, even though Pellagard could just help them and just give the excuse that Gother is controlling him. That is a very logical possibility. Or Pellagard is going to be controlled to take out the Chaos Knight and maybe knock himself out, so he doesn't even know where they go, or Gother will erase his memories of ever talking to them. That is a very likely possibility. But yeah, the main chapter was essentially just Pellagard learning of Percival being alive, being relieved about this situation, having to pretend that everyone here is not related to him in any way, shape, or form. Now he has to pursue them, and now Gother's doing something to Pellagard's mind to help them escape. Honestly, I'm honestly very glad that his severed limbs are actually playing a role in here and are not just thrown away. It'd be really cool if they just all fly back to him and they can just carry his severed limbs back so they can be reattached. I would find that kind of funny. And that also gives Gother more usefulness too. I don't know if there's like a radius for this to actually work, but I still find it incredibly useful, and I do think that he was working on this in the background. Also, this is actually something that I think you guys would probably be excited about. Apparently the next chapter's title is called The Forest of Laziness and Envy, which, yeah, that is literally the titles of King and the Yan, Serpent Sin of Envy, Grizzly Son of Sloth. Now, obviously, they can make it into Camelot. They're a giant and a fairy, but again, hybrids can make it in, which means it's very likely they'll get unlikely help from the one character that we know is canon, their daughter Tiore. I can make an entire video on Tiore once I get more information, and I really hope that she does make an appearance, because this is something that fans have been wanting to see ever since her reveal for the 7 Deadly Sins Origins MMO game that was announced over a year and a half ago at this point. So I really do want to see this be a thing. It'll be a nice last minute save and can actually put in the final Sin kid in the main series that people have been wanting for the longest time. So that was very likely. But that's basically it. There's nothing else for me to add on for this chapter. What did you guys think? Do you like how this chapter regressed? How do you feel about Pellagard potentially being kind of mind controlled so the main group can get out? How do you feel about him learning that Percival's alive and all that? Let me know in the comment section down below. And if you haven't already, like and subscribe, hit the notification bell for updates on future videos. Really helps and ensures you guys enjoy the content I'm making on this channel and shows you want to see more. Again, sorry for this short video, the chapter wasn't super dense, so there wasn't too much for me to really dig into. But hey, next week, very likely we'll get something big, so fingers crossed, we get that particular character showing up to make a save.